Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about bad behavior on Amtrak, 11 things that you should never do on Amtrak. And we've been riding the train since we got back to the US, and we have seen some things, you guys.
We have seen some bad behavior, and it's kind of shocking because some of it seems like common sense. Let us know in the comments if you've seen these things or if you've seen some things that we didn't mention here. But the first I'm going to mention is listening to media without headphones. This is just crazy to me that people think this is even something that is even possible. I see this in the station before we get on the train, and I see this on the train as well. And sometimes I just want to carry around extra headphones and pass them out to people, because I think if several people are doing this in the same room, it's like competing music or podcasts or whatever it is they're listening to, and nobody can hear anything. So I don't understand why people do it, but they do it, and this is something you should never do.
Yeah, it just seems, like you said, like common sense to me to not be listening to music or watching a show or YouTube. And I think probably the biggest offenders are people watching TikTok, because you hear them, flipping through different TikToks and just, switching between them. So the audio changes like every few seconds, which is even more annoying than just a consistent sound. We shouldn't have to listen to it. And I gotta tell you, the conductors almost always, I've heard them actually on every train that we've been on here in the US, the conductor has always said to use headphones, and yet you walk through and still hear people listening to stuff without headphones.
Yeah, maybe Amtrak should pass out the headphones like they do on the plane, and maybe it would reduce that happening. But I don't know. I feel like most of us, don't we all have headphones? Aren't they pretty easy to acquire if you're riding the train? Seems like that should be a no-brainer. Number 2 is going to be talking on the phone loudly or on the speakerphone. Now, I did notice this traveling overseas a lot, and when we came back, it seems like it has now spread to the United States. People walking around on their phone, holding it like this and talking into this. Whatever happened to talking like this? I don't understand. Because they're holding it like this, and then they have it on speakerphone, and the whole train can hear it.
Yeah, you're so close. If you have the phone here, all you have to do, flip it here, and we don't have to hear it. I don't know where that became okay. Again, also like listening to media with no headphones. I don't know what happened. When we were in Japan riding the trains, they tell you in the announcements, go into the vestibule, which is the area in between the train cars, or where the bathrooms are, which are separated. Go there to speak on the phone every single time. If you heard a phone ring, which is also rare, you would see the person get up from their seat and immediately hustle to that area. When they're out there on the phone, they talk on the phone itself, and then when they're finished, they come back and sit. You don't hear any of it. I think that we should try to adopt that model for the Amtrak train, because the number of conversations that I've heard, and not just hearing the conversation, but also the appropriateness level of what's being discussed as well, is sometimes not good for the trains. Whether there's kids or not, sometimes we just don't want to hear what you're talking about.
Yeah, that is definitely one. I think these somewhat come down to selfishness, and we just need to think about each other. We need to think about our fellow traveler, our fellow Amtrak rider, and we'll all be happier. The next one is going to be eating smelly food. Nobody wants to smell bad food. This is just something that can be, really disturbing for a lot of people. Maybe it's not bad for you, but there's a lot of people around you. It might be disturbing a lot of other people. So try to keep your food to not being a super smelly variety.
Yeah, and sometimes there are certain smells that really gag other people. Like, I'm not really bothered too much by smells personally, but I have seen other people like, like they were clearly struggling with it. And it's funny because this is actually different also from Japan, in that Japan, people are eating fish and sushi and all kinds of stuff that have very strong, powerful scents to them on the trains, and it isn't ever a problem because everybody's used to that. But if I'm on an Amtrak train in coach, I'm probably not going to whip out a tuna fish sandwich and eat that, knowing that everyone's going to be able to smell that for the next however many hours I'm on that train. I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to eat something that is not going to be, really smelly. And, you can get like this kind of stuff they sell in the snack car. That kind of stuff is obviously all reasonable stuff. But if you're getting things with some really powerful, like, onion and garlic and, fish scents and things like that, that's pretty strong scent. Not only is that going to affect you, but it's going to affect all the people in your train car.
Okay, this next one, I shouldn't have to say it. I'm going to say it, but we just saw it last week. Walking around the train barefoot. And it was not only walking around the train barefoot. We were in a sleeper car. We were in room number 2. Which, if you know room number 2, it is right across from the bathroom. We saw people going into the bathroom barefoot. Ooh, that is not something you should be doing. Not for your own personal safety, for your own personal sanity. You should not be doing that. I can't believe people were doing that.
I was completely shocked. We have the door open to our room, but the curtain pulled so you can see everything down below. And this person went into the bathroom, and I thought, did the person just walk by barefoot go into the bathroom? They sure did. And they came back out, and they actually went back into the bathroom again. And honestly, it isn't just super gross and a health concern, but it is also a huge safety issue. If you've ever been on an Amtrak train and you tried walking between the cars, you know that it's pretty risky. Like, I'm scared with shoes that something's gonna happen. I would be scared to death to have something happen to my feet trying to walk between there barefoot. And again, this is another thing that the conductors actually say out loud every single train ride.
All right, next one's going to be drinking personal alcohol in coach class.
That's right, and coach class specifically, because that is the only class that you are not allowed to bring and consume your own alcohol. You can bring it, but it better be in your bag and never be exposed, and you cannot consume it on the train. If you are in a sleeper car, you can consume it in your sleeper car room, but if you are in coach, you cannot bring alcohol and consume it. And this has clearly been a problem several times, because we have heard them come back on and tell people, if you've got it, put it away right now, or we're going to have to take it. And so it's a legal thing, and you just can't do it. I don't know why people continue to try to get away with it.
Let's talk about taking up more than one seat in coach. You've been there. You walk into coach, you're trying to find a seat. Maybe there's 2 of you. There's just a bunch of people spread out, taking up 2 seats. I've seen people take up 4 seats when they're kind of facing each other, just trying to like dare someone to come sit on their stuff. And sometimes that happens too, and then they get mad. But don't be the person that's taking up a bunch of seats, because eventually all the seats are going to get full for the most part anyway, and you're going to have to move your stuff.
Yeah, even if you're like, I've been on the train for an hour already and nobody has sat here. I'm just going to put my things here and spread out and get comfortable. Well, guess what? In the middle of the night, you know what's going to happen? A bunch of people are going to get onto the train, and they're going to have to wake you up to move your things, because they're going to have to get your seat. These trains are full these days. The ridership on Amtrak has been going up, and they're full. They're going to be taking up all those seats. So save yourself the hassle, the embarrassment, and just take up the one seat that you are assigned or that you chose.
Sleeping in the observation car. We do see this quite often. People go down there to sleep. I don't know why. If you have a roomette or a bedroom, you can sleep in there. If you have a coach seat, those recline pretty well. I think it's easier to sleep in the coach seat than it is in the observation car. I'm not sure why people go to the observation car to sleep, but they do. And they end up getting kicked out of there.
Yeah, it's really surprising to me how many people go to the observation car, the sightseer lounge, to take a nap. Those coach seats, even if you are in coach, guys, the coach seats are so comfortable. Sometimes when I'm in a sleeper car, I think, I wish I had a coach seat, because those recline so nicely. Not only do they recline really nicely, but the footrest comes up as well. It's a great place to take a nap. So I would much prefer taking a nap in my seat if I'm in coach, rather than going and taking up a spot in the sightseer lounge, because people want to go and enjoy the view, or just, kind of chat up with the other passengers, or use the tables to have snacks that they've purchased from the snack bar down below.
Now that is a hot tip. I think if you're sleeping sitting up in a roomette, the coach seats are more comfortable to sleep in. Of course, the roomette ones are more comfortable if you're laying down at night, but during the day, sometimes you're right. I do wish I was in a coach seat, because they're better than the roomette seats. Next one's going to be smoking near the doors on fresh air breaks.
And those are the key words. It's a fresh air break. Fresh air break. If you're standing by the door smoking, is the air going to be fresh? No, it isn't. And they actually, again, the conductors tell you, stand at least 25 feet from any open doors on the train. And almost every single time, there is somebody who either didn't hear or didn't care and stands right outside the train. Literally steps off, one step, and they're right next to the door and they're smoking. When you get back on, it reeks of smoke down there, because all of that smoke has been blowing into the train car. So, you want to smoke? That's amazing. Great. You can smoke. And that's why, they have those breaks. It's great that you can do that on those breaks. However, those that don't want to smoke probably don't want to smell your smoke.
Next one's going to be, this. We just saw that. We had this happen on our last train, and it got to be very, very annoying, really. It was people ringing the attendant call button in the sleeper cars for non-emergency situations late at night or early in the morning. So it must have been, 15 or 20 times in a row one morning, people were ringing the attendant bell. And, the attendant clearly wasn't there at the moment, and they just kept ringing the bell.
I was astounded. And you know what they wanted in the end? Because the attendant finally came back to the car, because he was actually getting food for somebody. I overheard him saying that. And when he did make it back to our car, he delivered the food, and he realized that that person had been ringing the bell. He asked them what they wanted, and all they wanted was for him to make their room back up into the seats and put their beds up. And I thought, that wasn't worth the 10 to 15 times that you rang that bell. And it's like, you hear the ringing when you hit the button. You can hear it. So you have to realize that everyone else in your train car can also hear you ringing that bell. I remember several people poking their heads out of their room. We were all wondering, is this an emergency? Should we go and look? It was not an emergency.
Yeah, I actually did get up and walked around the entire train and looked in each room to see if somebody was needing help, because of how much the bell was being rung, and there was no emergency. So the next one is going to go along with walking around barefoot and going into the bathrooms. This is making a mess in the bathrooms. We see this so often. We see it a lot in coach. We also see it in the sleeper cars. The sleeper cars is not generally as bad, although this last time it was really, really bad. But the thing that's even worse than that, because this is kind of like a fake out thing, is when you're washing your hands or brushing your teeth. I know it's tempting. They have the paper towels there to not use the paper towels. People just, a lot of times they'll wash their hands up and then they'll just go like this. And what happens is all that water goes on the floor. The little drops of water go on the floor. Well, then someone comes out of the bathroom and you're not sure if that's water or if they just had the walls shaking while they were going to the bathroom. And so then you're walking in there with your bare feet and you don't know what that is on the floor. I can tell you that's not good. No. Most of the time it is water, I think. I think it's water.
You don't know.
But I say I think it's water. You don't really know. But,
oh my goodness.
So don't make a mess, but also don't do the hand water thing on the floor, because you're just freaking everybody out that comes in after you, and that's going to be bad for them.
Yeah, it's just become such a problem. It's like, what happens is people will say drop a piece of toilet paper or drop a paper towel on the floor, and then they think, I'm not going to pick it up, I'll just leave it there. Well, 10 people do that, and then guess what? You're having to plow your way in there through a bunch of toilet paper and paper towel on the floor because nobody bothered to clean it. Or people who have brushed their teeth in the bathroom in the mornings and just left, toothpaste all over the place. Just take a couple of seconds and think to yourself, how would I like to walk into this bathroom? Well, that's the way you should walk out of it. However you would like it when you walk in, that's how it should be when you walk out. And hopefully that's clean and not full of junk and paper on the floor and toothpaste everywhere.
Next one's going to be leaving a mess at your seat or in the room. This is especially bad if you are getting off the train halfway through the ride. We've seen this happen where we had a family in a family bedroom and they got off about halfway through. What they didn't know was someone was getting on and taking that room at the very next stop. Well, they left the room looking like they were in a movie theater and they had peanut shells all over the floor. There was popcorn all over the place. It was a disaster. And the attendant looked at it and he was like, I got 15 minutes to get this cleaned up before the next customer gets on the train. And what you don't realize is that if you ride a room or you are in a seat for part of the way, someone else is going to be in that seat 15 to 20 minutes after you leave the train. And a lot of times there won't be time to do there never is time to do a deep cleaning. They're just trying to pick up any trash before the next person gets on there. So leave it as clean as you can.
Absolutely. And this happens also at the seats. People leave trash in the back of the seats when they leave their seats in coach. And the same thing in the sleeper cars. I remember that family very specifically. The room attendant had been so kind to them, and in return, they handed him over a room that was filled with junk. I mean, it looked like they took a bag of goldfish, crushed it, and then just emptied it onto the floor. It was really astounding how people could just walk away and leave something like that and think that that's okay. Again, same logic as in the bathrooms. Think to yourself, when I get to my room or when I get to my seat, what do I want it to look like? Well, maybe that's what it should look like when you leave, so that the next person doesn't have to, try to get rid of your trash. They don't know what's in that bag that you've left there. It's really just common courtesies. And like you said at the beginning, a lot of these things are things that really shouldn't have to be said, and yet they are said on every single ride by the conductors, and yet every single ride, these happen on the train.
Yeah, so we'd like to hear, what have we missed? You've been on the train. Certainly you've seen some things happening. Put those in the comments because we want to know what you've seen, what kind of bad behavior has been happening, and what needs to be cleaned up. Tell people what they should not be doing on Amtrak.
That's right. All right, guys, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Give us a like if you enjoyed this video. Leave us those ideas or things that you've seen down below in the comment section, and we'll see you next time.